The Warlord is back in ALGS. That's right, Shiv, Xerrifer, and Mande were able to qualify in the final spot for the Pro League based off of those preseason points. What's even more wild than that is that 3 Dragon were able to technically qualify for Pro League playing in the final day of PLQ as a duo, until they got DQ'd. The final week of EMEA PLQs were wild, so let's get down and do what it do. PLQ number 4 TLDR EMEA edition. And early on, it felt like the spots were all but locked up, with 5 teams towards the top of those preseason points, and assuming one of those 5 teams would be able to win in the 4th and final week, it's pretty well assured that the other 4 would be able to get in as long as they didn't finish like bottom 4 during the finals, which meant for teams like Death Wish and 40% Worse, they'd have to pretty well rely on winning the day if they were to try and make Pro League.
There are 5 teams that are in a really, really good spot. One specifically in a better place. So where do we want to start?
I think it would be remiss not to bring up the fact that the boys have performed so well in these last preseason qualifiers, and the fact that they come into today knowing they at minimum get 900 points is enough for us mathematically, and everyone else hopefully who is a big fan of this, to know that they have qualified. The boys are one of those official Pro League teams right off of the bat, but everyone else is still up in the air.
And when you say everyone else, it gets increasingly severe for those teams that we haven't seen in nearly as many finals. There are 4 teams specifically: 202, 3 Dragons, Stay Healthy, and LVH.
And our first game on the World's Edge would send us off to Skyhook, which typically gives us a pretty packed end game as is, and with this being the start to our final PLQ in EMEA, teams were definitely playing a little bit more conservative. Well, everyone except for Villains, who picked up 16 KP, while unfortunately only being able to add an additional 3 placement points. But it was 40% Worse who had put themselves in fantastic position early. They were one of the first ones to the final end zone, and they had read it absolutely beautifully. And it would only be a matter of time before the final Finders squad would need to climb the wall and push out into the open. Same could be said about pushing out into the open for the 40% Worse squad, but they had a big old bang ult to be able to come in to help open things up.
Now comes the ult. Shiv is buying the team space that finals finders are quickly running out of.
Stuck from behind the fence line, it'll be Mande from above here with the first major crack. Turns upon the fence line, make it 1 more here, drop 2, and send 40% Worse as your game 1 champions.
But then all of our top 3 teams that separated themselves early from the lobby in game number 1 would all go out relatively early in game number 2. Villains with no points, 40% Worse, and Final Finders adding 3 and 4 points respectively. And after the hecticness of Ring 5 closing in, we were left with Wanted, LVH, NPC, and Stay Healthy left in the final 4. And although Stay Healthy would have the low ground, which is usually a disadvantage, with the other 3 teams fighting for the building, it looked briefly like it could work to their advantage.
The only surviving squad to have come from Lava Fissure and make it into this zone. They are now one of 4 teams left: NPC, LVH, Wanted, and Stay Healthy on the low ground. Arguably the most difficult position, but they have the benefit of it being the most undesirable one as well.
Right now, NPC, I would say, potentially, yes, Stay Healthy is undesirable, but I would not want where NPC currently here, stuck literally within a corner. LVH are looking for the full send. Robin already down and out. Talea will try for the Radiant transfer and will find.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That was the. No. That R99 spray, nothing to do with it. Those Peacekeeper shots were the most devastating thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's almost individually responsible for moving us down to just the 2 squads left. And now Stay Healthy's position does start to look a whole lot harder, even with the smokes that they've used up. Their previous prayer of hoping that 2 teams would fight each other got shut down by the exact Peacekeeper we're thinking of.
Wanted, who have been far and few between in terms of recent fights here, are more than happy now to take advantage of the height they posture with now. Love this opposite angle from Mande, but it will be found with a black hole in response. Now completely separated out as a solo member. This is the advantage Stay Healthy look for, but the height in return is oh so difficult. A perfect dark veil on the other side. Angles to push back. Finds Thawne as well. Now a single knockdown shield and a dream here, and a 2v1 here.
But a great Dark Veil by Clone allowed their teammate to be able to get the shield swap, and the two of them would just sit and wait as the zone would force in their last standing opponent, allowing them to bring home the dub. But with no team really being able to survive the barrage of third parties in the end game, that would mean not too many points really went to any team in particular, which, as the desk would point out, would just lead to a more crowded top of the leaderboard.
But ultimately, it didn't matter. In so many ways, the KP that so many teams were looking to pick up here doesn't come through, right? They don't get the opportunity to actually piece that together, right? Because third party into fourth, into fifth, into sixth, it's very likely that when we look at the kills in this solo game, you're only taking away 3 to 6 maybe at maximum.
And the lobby would continue to play out rather tight for our final trip over to World's Edge, sending us down to Thermal Station like just east of it, and Forbidden looked to be in good position, being in the vicinity of where the zone was closing in. And with Final Finders being in a pretty solid spot as well, they had turned their eyes over to 40% worse.
Might not be able to, but with that damage found and the information from Finals being that it will be the push that results in very likely the end of both of these rosters here. Xerrifer down, Mande and Shiv make it potentially the namesake himself also eliminated. It's up to Mande.
And when LVH and Forbidden would start fighting for second above them, that would be the opportunity for Final Finders to raise up from the low ground, cleaning things up, taking home the dub, and putting themselves in the lead.
Coming in here now from above, like you said, the perfect of all situations for the likes of Final Finders. Forbidden will be full wiped down to just a single member. LVH a duo at the hands of our final zone. Make it a solo. And for Finals Finders, like you said, it must be Christmas early here.
It's two solos. There's literally nothing they can do. Finals Finders come all the way back.
And the leaderboard was still pretty close-ish, sorta. Final Finders would have a 10-point lead on 40% worse, and then there would be 6 teams within 10 points a second. And with still having a whole 3 games to play, it was still technically anyone's game. But keep in mind, for both 40% worst and Final Finders, it looked like even a second place finish wouldn't be enough as far as those preseason points were concerned for qualifying for Pro League, so just 3 games left to clinch a spot were left. Talk about stress. And with Final Finders going out in 14th with just 1 point in game number 4, this would be the opportunity that the rest of the lobby was waiting for, and particularly 40% worse, a team that needed to win this day in order to see the Warlord back into Pro League, and we would be heading up northwards towards Northpath.
This is interesting. All 4 of the teams, or at least 4 of our teams, set within the edges of this building in the trench just alongside it here. The real question being, where do they present? Where do they begin to push out here? Who takes maybe potentially opposite angles to make this one work?
Now, looking at 40% worse. Not going to throw any shots out just yet, but that's just because the smoke is in their way. Catalyst wall going to be used a little bit early by 40% worse, but it walls them in on the same side as Odyssey. Duo versus trio. Tohu Tona know what fight they want to take. They want a third party, whatever's going on over there. 40% worse, however, haven't actually taken the engagement just yet, and they're waiting as Tohu drop and lose 2 members. They're likely going to go down. OKS moving up to take this, what was supposed to be 4th party, but instead just being the first squad to eliminate one. LVH move out right behind them, and everybody's funneling into this Odyssey corner. 40% worse are still alive.
Into the top 3, Xerrifer and Mande prey upon the minor space that they have, finally dropping to take the fight directly. It's going to be something that puts enough damage down that seals OKS in Odyssey now with the perfect position from above will win your game 4.
And while they weren't able to walk away with the dub, the 3rd place finish in game number 4 would be enough to put 40% worse in the lead with just 2 games left. But not only that, now we would have us a series. 5 teams within 12 points, 4 within 8, and everybody in the top 5 needing to win in order to keep their Pro League dreams alive. But in game number 5, we would see something that felt like a pipe dream, something that I don't think anyone was counting on, and that was 3 Dragons, the duo, able to win as a duo. But not just win as a duo, but winning big.
3 Dragons
No way.
versus LVH here, surviving as a no health to boot, just a Radiant transfer. Juicy will be picked apart, but a shield swap keeps the dream alive.
3 Dragons as a duo are going to clinch this game. 1 shot left, and they do it. What a game from 3 Dragons, who, playing out of the south side of the zone, had absolutely no right.
23 points, which unfortunately were most of the points that they had accumulated thus far in the day, but it really prevented anyone else from being able to really seize control of the lobby. If anything, it kept things interesting going into the final games, as 40% worse would still be in first, with Final Finders at 46 and LVH at 44, as the only 2 teams realistically within striking distance as we would head off to our last game. And it would be rather late into game number 6 where 40% worse would fall, 5th place to be exact. The only problem was they were only able to add an additional 2 KP, meaning that they only added a total of 6, setting their total points to 58. But then Final Finders would be the first team to fall in the end game, adding only 5 points to their name, leaving it all up to LVH if there were to be any team to pull off the last match miracle and knock 40% worse out of first place, and they were playing from the high ground with Zone pulling straight towards them.
And that's Finals Finders. We're down to our top 3 and a single member of 3 Dragons. That likely sets the fate of Final Finders in stone, not potentially on their way to Pro League, but realistically, if you want to make sure it is set, if you want LVH on their way, they've got to win this.
And they can, with NPC sitting in the building ahead of them. It's just a matter of smart use of cooldowns, catwalk, and cut off their sightlines completely. And NPC have even given up the building right ahead of Jay Hanzo. Plenty more time on the zone close as well. 10 seconds till this starts to move in. Hanzo's already off of the height, rejoining the team. Craver not going to connect out of Vaves, but it just takes 1 hit.
One big thing to note here is that MVC do not have position in zone whatsoever and are going to be forced to make a heavy rotation for the next 40. The same, surprisingly, can be said for Juicy on 3 Dragons here as a solo member coming from that eastern side. You have to be careful. Ooh, from the height there, a heady for a massive 280. It's just the fact that it's a Revenant saves the day, but with all 3 members quickly eliminated, LVH is the odd with the win on the belt. They're likely your winners of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's 1 member of 3 Dragons left, and they're just going to go down to the zone, not wanting to fight it out in the end, and fair enough. They clinched their win today, and a 2nd place. This was as a duo that 3 Dragons performed, but with LVH finding a win, there's a crucial element to that. KP was denied 1 point missing from LVH, and while we do know that I think this should have gone in LVH's favor, that 1 point could make the difference.
And LVH would be able to walk away with the dub, screaming past 40% worse than the scoreboard, clinching their spot into Pro League, and then this is where things would get extremely interesting. And albeit for different reasons, just like we saw in the APAC South region where a qualifying team was then disqualified, when we got to the end of the broadcast for EMEA, it was announced that the boys, 202, 3 Dragons, and Stay Healthy would be the 4 teams securing their spots for Pro League. That's right, the team that played the final day of PLQ finals as a duo did enough to ensure their team placed high enough with those preseason points. However, due to a player on the 3 Dragons roster getting banned and therefore forfeiting their preseason points, it would actually be 40% worse, securing the last and final preseason qualifier spot. And you gotta tip your hat to the way that the Warlord and his teammates handled it. You'll love to see it. But with our field now being set, who is it that you are going to be cheering for in the EMEA region for ALGS? Let me know down those comments below. And if it's your first time through over on the channel, what it do? I'm your boy Q. I actually cover a little bit of ALGS along with some other esports with breakdown videos like this one right here. So if you're looking for a good place to keep up with every region every week for the upcoming season, make sure you subscribe down below and you've got those notifications turned on. You'll really be helping your boy out if you tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody about it. Don't forget that you always got this playlist right up there if you want to make sure you're up to date with everything when it comes to the ALGS. And until we do catch y'all back over here for the next one, man, don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard, all right, y'all? It's your boy Q, signing out.